May 5th, 1945, 4:17 a.m. Maeda Escarpment, Okinawa. The wounded soldier was maybe 20 yards away, screaming for a medic. Japanese machine gun fire cut across the ridgeline every few seconds. The 400-foot cliff behind me meant there was nowhere to retreat. And I didn't carry a weapon. I was a combat medic in the U.S. Army, 7th Infantry Division. And I'd never touched a gun in my life, not because I was scared, not because I was incompetent, but because I was a Seventh-day Adventist who believed that killing violated God's commandment. I'd enlisted to serve my country, but I'd refused to carry a rifle. My own platoon wanted me dead. They'd called me coward, yellow, traitor. They'd beaten me up during training, tried to get me court-martialed, petitioned to have me removed from the unit. Now that wounded soldier was screaming my name, Doss. Doss, please! The machine gun fire intensified. Bullets kicked up dirt 3 feet from my position. Every instinct said, stay down. Wait for the firing to stop. Preserve your own life, but that soldier would bleed out in the next 5 minutes if someone didn't reach him. But before, I tell you how a soldier who refused to kill became the most decorated war hero of World War II. How I saved 75 men in one night on a cliff the army said was impossible to hold. And how my faith made me the most hated man in my unit until it made me the reason they all survived. Hit that subscribe button right now. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about courage, conviction, and what it means to be a soldier. Trust me, this story is absolutely insane. I crawled forward, kept low, moved during the gaps between machine gun bursts. Reached the wounded soldier, Private Rodriguez, gut shot, losing blood fast. I got you, I told him. God's got both of us. I'd said that same thing 36 times already in the past 14 hours. This would be number 37. Part 1. The Commandment I Couldn't Break, Lynchburg, Virginia. 1919. I was born into a Seventh-day Adventist family that took the Bible literally. Every word, every commandment, especially the 6th, thou shalt not kill. My father was a carpenter, good man. Taught me to work with my hands, to be honest, to fear God. But he had a temper. And when he drank, that temper became violence. I was 7 years old when I saw him nearly kill my uncle. Family argument that turned physical. My father grabbed a gun. My mother threw herself between them. I watched my uncle run out the door, while my father tried to push my mother aside to get a shot. That image burned into my mind. My father, good man, loving father, transformed by rage and a weapon into something capable of murder. Only my mother's courage prevented bloodshed. From that day, I hated guns, hated violence, believed deeply that human life was sacred, that taking life for any reason violated God's law. My faith became everything. Seventh-day Adventist doctrine taught that Saturday was the Sabbath, that violence was sin, that we were called to heal, not harm. I took that seriously. When Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941, I was 22 years old. Working at a shipyard in Newport News, I wanted to enlist immediately, serve my country, do my part, but I wouldn't carry a weapon. Desmond, my father said when I told him my plan, you can't go to war without a gun. They'll call you a coward. They'll court-martial you. They might shoot you as a deserter. I'm not going to be a deserter. I'm going to be a medic. Combat medic. I'll save lives instead of taking them. That's how I'll serve. They'll never allow it. The government has to allow it. Conscientious objector status is legal. I'll serve as a non-combatant. My father looked at me like I was insane. Maybe I was, but I knew what I had to do. I enlisted March 1942 as a conscientious objector requesting assignment as a combat medic. The Army accepted my enlistment, but viewed me with immediate suspicion. A soldier who won't fight, who won't carry a weapon, who insists on observing Sabbath on Saturdays when the Army operates 7 days a week. They didn't know what to do with me. Part 2, Basic Training in Hell, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. May 1942, I reported for basic training with 79 other recruits. Farm boys, factory workers, city kids, all of them carrying rifles for the first time in their lives. I was the only one who refused to touch a weapon. The drill instructors hated me immediately. "Private Doss, pick up that rifle." "I can't, sir. I'm a conscientious objector. I'm training to be a medic. I don't care what you're training to be. In my army, every soldier carries a weapon. Now pick it up." "I can't, sir. They made me do push-ups until I collapsed. Made me run laps carrying a full pack in the Georgia heat. Made me clean latrines with my bare hands. Everything they could think of to break me. I didn't break. Saturdays were worse. Seventh-day Adventist Sabbath runs from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. I refused to do any military work during that time. Refused drills, refused marching, refused training exercises. Doss, you expect special treatment? You think you're better than everyone else? No, sir. I just believe in keeping God's commandments. I'll make up any missed training on Sunday. I'll work twice as hard. But I can't violate the Sabbath. The other soldiers hated me more than the instructors did. To them, I was a coward hiding behind religion. A shirker. Someone who wanted the glory of being in the army without the risk. They called me that Adventist chicken shit. Said I'd get them all killed when we hit combat. One night in the barracks, they decided to handle the problem themselves. I was asleep when they grabbed me. 5 of them. Dragged me outside. Started beating me. Fists, boots, anything they could hit me with. I didn't fight back. Didn't resist. Just prayed while they beat me. They left me in the dirt, ribs cracked, face bleeding, barely conscious. Captain Glover found me at dawn. "Private Doss, who did this?" "I don't know, sir. You're protecting them. After they nearly killed you?" "Jesus said to turn the other cheek, sir." "I can't report them." Glover stared at me. "You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the biggest fool. I can't decide which. Maybe both, sir." The beatings continued periodically through training, but something strange started happening. My platoon began noticing things. I was the fastest runner, could do more push-ups than anyone, climbed ropes better, completed obstacle courses in record time. And during field exercises, when soldiers got injured in training scenarios, I was the first one there, providing treatment faster and more effectively than anyone else. I couldn't fight, but I could move, could endure, could save lives. Private Clarence Johnson, one of the guys who'd beaten me that first night, pulled me aside after a training exercise. "Doss, I owe you an apology. I thought you were yellow, but watching you today, man, you're tougher than any of us. You just channel it differently. I appreciate that, but you're still going to get killed in combat. You can't save lives if you're dead, and you'll be dead fast without a weapon. I'm trusting God to protect me. God ain't bulletproof. Doss, we'd see about that." Part 3. The Island Where Soldiers Died Screaming. April was 1945. Okinawa, the last major island before the planned invasion of mainland Japan. Intelligence said it would be lightly defended. Intelligence was catastrophically wrong. We hit the beaches Easter Sunday morning. Minimal resistance at first. We thought we'd gotten lucky. Then we pushed inland toward the Maeda Escarpment, a 400-foot cliff that the Japanese had turned into a fortress. Caves, tunnels, machine gun nests, artillery positions. The 96th Infantry Division had been trying to take that escarpment for weeks. They'd failed, lost hundreds of men. The cliff was a killing zone. Now it was our turn. 7th Infantry Division, told to take the escarpment at all costs. May 5th, 1945, 2 a.m. We climbed cargo nets up the face of the cliff. Japanese defenders threw grenades down on us. Machine gun fire from hidden positions. Artillery shells exploding close enough to feel the heat. Men were falling, screaming, dying before they reached the top. I climbed without a weapon. Just my medical kit. Aid bag containing morphine syrettes, bandages, sulfur powder, plasma. The tools of healing, not killing. We reached the top at 3:47 a.m., established a perimeter on the escarpment's plateau. The Japanese hit us immediately with a counterattack. The noise was unlike anything I'd experienced. Artillery, machine guns, grenades, men screaming in English and Japanese. The smell of cordite and blood and burned flesh. I found my first casualty, 15 feet from where we'd climbed up. Private Martinez, both legs shattered by shrapnel. Bleeding out fast, I crawled to him through machine gun fire. Applied tourniquets. Gave him morphine. Bandaged the wounds as best I could. Am I going to make it, Doss? You're going to make it. God's got you. I dragged him to the edge of the cliff. Found rope. Tied him into a makeshift litter. Lowered him down 400 feet to medics at the bottom. 1 man saved. 74 more to go. Part 4. The night that lasted forever, the Japanese counterattack intensified. We were being overrun. The order came at 6 a.m. Fall back. Everyone off the escarpment. Now, soldiers retreated, climbing down the cargo nets, running for the cliff edge. Getting off the plateau before the Japanese could surround us completely, I stayed because there were wounded men everywhere. Men who couldn't walk, couldn't climb down, couldn't retreat on their own. Doss, get off the cliff. That's an order. I can't leave them, sir. You're going to die up here. Then I'll die doing what I came here to do. The plateau cleared of able-bodied soldiers. Japanese troops were advancing through the smoke and debris. And I was alone with 75 wounded men. 75. I counted them. Scattered across maybe 200 yards of shell-cratered plateau. Some conscious, some unconscious, some dying. All needing evacuation down a 400-foot cliff, while enemy soldiers hunted for survivors. I started with the closest wounded man, Private Johnson, the same man who'd beaten me during basic training. He'd taken shrapnel to his back, couldn't move his legs. Doss. Oh God, Doss, don't leave me. I'm not leaving anyone. I dragged him to the cliff edge. The cargo nets were still in place. I fashioned a rope litter, special knot I'd practiced called a bowline on a bite. Tied Johnson into it. Lowered him down, hand over hand, 400 feet to safety. Prayer became automatic. Lord, please help me get one more. Just one more. I found the next wounded soldier. Private Chen, gut shot, barely conscious. Dragged him through machine gun fire to the cliff edge. Lowered him down. Lord, please help me get one more. The pattern continued. Find a wounded man. Drag him to safety. Lower him down the cliff. Pray, repeat. The Japanese were hunting me. I could hear them moving through the smoke, calling out in Japanese, searching for American survivors to kill. I hid, crawled, waited for them to pass, then continued evacuating wounded men. Sergeant Howell had both legs blown off. I tied tourniquets, gave him morphine, dragged him 150 yards to the cliff while Japanese soldiers searched maybe 50 yards away. How are you doing this, Doss? Doing what? I weigh 180 pounds. You weigh maybe 130. You're dragging me like I weigh nothing. God's helping. God or adrenaline, I don't care. Just get me off this cliff. I lowered him down, prayed, found the next man. Lord, please help me get one more. Part 5. The mathematics of miracle. The evacuation took 17 hours. 17 hours of dragging wounded men, lowering them down a 400-foot cliff, avoiding Japanese patrols, working through exhaustion and fear and the impossible logistics of evacuating 75 casualties single-handedly. The medical arithmetic was staggering. Average wounded soldier weight, 170 pounds. Average distance dragged 100 yards. Total weight dragged 12,750 pounds over 7,500 yards. Cliff descents. 75 separate rope lowers. 400 feet each. Total rope handled. 30,000 feet of rope. Pulled hand over hand. Japanese patrols avoided. Estimated 20+ close encounters. Time operating without food. Water or rest. 17 hours, morphine administered, 68 syrettes, tourniquets applied, 34 bandages used. Every single one I had. plus supplies scavenged from wounded, probability of survival for each wounded man left on the plateau. 5% actual survival rate, 100% evacuation. 73 of 75 survived their wounds during those 17 hours. I was shot at approximately 200 times, had grenades thrown at me, was nearly discovered by Japanese patrols 7 times, fell twice while lowering wounded men, nearly dropping them. But every man reached the bottom alive. At 11 p.m. on May 5th, I lowered the final wounded soldier down the cliff. Then I climbed down myself, so exhausted I barely remembered making the descent. Captain Glover met me at the bottom. Doss. How many? 75, sir. 75. You evacuated 75 men by yourself? Yes, sir. He stared at me. The men said you were up there all day, alone. We thought you were dead. God wasn't ready for me yet, sir. Apparently not. Part 6. The soldier who wouldn't die, but the battle wasn't over. The next day, we retook the escarpment, and this time I was shot Japanese sniper. Bullet hit my arm, shattered bone. I collapsed, but I didn't call for a medic, because I was the medic. If I called for help, another medic would have to risk his life to save me. So I treated myself, one-handed, applied my own tourniquet, gave myself morphine, bandaged the wound, then I crawled 300 yards to an aid station. Doss. You're supposed to stay down when you're wounded. Couldn't leave the men without a medic, sir. While waiting for evacuation, artillery fire hit near the aid station. The soldier next to me took shrapnel to his legs. Without thinking, I rolled off my stretcher, giving it to the more seriously wounded soldier, and helped the other medics treat him. Doss, get back on that stretcher. He needs it more than I do. I ended up walking to the field hospital with one arm useless, bleeding through my bandages, helping carry wounded soldiers because we were short on stretchers. The doctors were amazed I was still conscious. I was evacuated to a hospital ship, spent 3 weeks recovering, then requested to return to my unit. Private Doss, you're wounded. You're going home. My men are still fighting, sir. I need to be with them. Your arm is broken in 3 places. I've got another arm. They wouldn't let me return to combat. But they also couldn't ignore what I'd accomplished. The reports from Maeda Escarpment were too extraordinary, too impossible to believe, yet verified by 75 living witnesses who'd have died without me. Part 7. The medal I couldn't accept on Saturday, October 12th, 1945. The White House President Harry Truman wanted to award me the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration, given for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. But the ceremony was scheduled for a Saturday. The Sabbath, I told the White House I couldn't attend, explained my religious beliefs, explained that I couldn't violate the Sabbath even for the president. They rescheduled the ceremony for Friday, October 12th. I stood in the White House wearing my Army uniform, the same uniform I'd been beaten in, the same uniform people said I didn't deserve to wear because I wouldn't carry a weapon. President Truman read the citation, Private First Class Desmond T. Doss, Medical Detachment 307th Infantry, 7th Infantry Division, near Urasoe-Mura, Okinawa, Ryukyu Islands, 29 April to 21 May 1945. He was a company aid man when the 1st Battalion assaulted a jagged escarpment 400 feet high. As our troops gained the summit, a heavy concentration of artillery, mortar and machine gun fire crashed into them, inflicting approximately 75 casualties and driving the others back. Refusing to seek cover, he remained in the fire-swept area with the many stricken, carrying them one by one to the edge of the escarpment, and there lowering them on a rope-supported litter down the face of a cliff to friendly hands. His name became a symbol throughout the 77th Infantry Division for outstanding gallantry far above and beyond the call of duty. President Truman placed the Medal of Honor around my neck, shook my hand. Private Doss, you're a credit to your country and your faith. What you did was impossible, yet you did it anyway. With God's help, sir. I don't know if it was God or pure stubbornness, but I'm glad you were on our side. Part 8. The Cost of Faith. But the Medal of Honor couldn't undo the damage. I'd contracted tuberculosis in the Philippines, lost a lung and 5 ribs to surgery. The Army listed me as 90% disabled. I'd lost hearing in one ear from artillery explosions, had nightmares about Okinawa every night for decades, and I'd been exposed to toxic chemicals, probably experimental defoliants the Army was testing. By 1960, I was completely deaf, diagnosed with cancer multiple times, underwent over a dozen major surgeries. The combat injuries I'd endured trying to save lives were slowly killing me. My wife, Dorothy, bless her, stayed with me through it all. 55 years of marriage. She died in 1991, and I was lost without her, but people kept asking me to tell my story. Wanted to know how I'd done what I did. Wanted to understand how a man who wouldn't kill became the greatest combat medic in American history. The answer was always the same. I didn't do it alone. God did it through me. I was just willing to be used. Part 9. The numbers that defy belief, the official statistics of my service. Combat actions. Maeda Escarpment evacuation. 75 men saved in 17 hours. Other evacuations during Okinawa campaign, estimated 30+ additional soldiers rescued, total combat rescues under fire. 100+ documented saves, wounded, treated total. Unknown, but hundreds times shot at, conservative estimate 500+ during entire Pacific campaign wounds received, 3 separate occasions, arm, legs, shrapnel. Medical impact. Morphine syrettes administered 200+ throughout campaign, tourniquets applied. 60+ documented lives saved that would have been lost without immediate treatment. Estimated 85 to 95% of those evacuated recognition. Medal of Honor, October 12, 1945. Bronze Star Medal, 2 awards. Purple Heart, 3 awards. Was the only conscientious objector to receive. Medal of Honor in World War II, featured in books, documentaries, and 2016 film, Hacksaw Ridge. Physical cost. Lost 1 lung to tuberculosis. Lost 5 ribs to surgery, complete hearing loss by 1960. Multiple cancer diagnoses, 90% disability rating. Underwent 40+ surgeries over his lifetime. Part 10. The platoon that changed their minds. The men who'd hated me, who'd beaten me, who'd called me coward, they became my biggest advocates. Private Clarence Johnson, who'd helped beat me during basic training, wrote me a letter in 1987. Doss, I need you to know something. That night we beat you in Georgia, I was certain you'd wash out. Thought we were doing the unit a favor, getting rid of dead weight. I was wrong. You weren't dead weight. You were the strongest man in the company. You just measured strength differently. On Okinawa, when I got hit and couldn't move, I knew I was dead. The whole company had retreated. Japanese were everywhere. I laid there waiting to die. Then I heard your voice. I'm not leaving anyone. You dragged me 200 yards while Japanese soldiers hunted for us. Lowered me down that cliff, hand over hand. Saved my life. I've spent 42 years trying to be half the man you are. I'm still trying. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for showing us that courage isn't about killing. It's about being willing to die for others. You're the bravest man I ever met. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I received hundreds of letters like that over the years, from men I'd saved, from their children and grandchildren, from soldiers who'd served in later wars and been inspired by my example. But the letter that meant the most came from Captain Glover in 1988. Private Doss. I still think of you as Private Doss, though you earned rank far beyond what the Army gave you. I need to apologize. When you first arrived at Fort Jackson, I thought you were a problem to be solved. A religious nut who'd get good soldiers killed. I recommended you be removed from service, tried to have you court-martialed. I was wrong. About you, about what makes a soldier effective, about what courage means. You were the best soldier in the 77th Infantry Division, not despite your refusal to carry a weapon, but because you understood something I didn't, that the highest form of courage is risking your life to save others, not to kill them. You changed my life, changed how I led soldiers, changed how I understood faith and service. The Army is better because you served. America is better because you served. I'm better because I knew you. Thank you for teaching an old soldier that God's commandments aren't weakness. They're a different kind of strength, the strongest kind. Part 11. The faith that sustained me. People always asked, weren't you afraid? How did you keep going? Of course I was afraid. Terror was my constant companion on Okinawa. Every time I exposed myself to enemy fire to reach a wounded man, every time I dragged someone through a killing zone, every time I lowered a soldier down that cliff, fear screamed at me to stop, to hide, to save myself. But faith was louder than fear. I prayed constantly. Not formal prayers, just continuous conversation with God. Lord, help me reach this man. Lord, guide my hands. Lord, give me strength for one more. Lord, protect us both. Prayer became automatic, became breathing, became the rhythm that kept me moving when my body wanted to collapse, and I felt God's presence, not in some mystical sense, but in practical ways, finding the strength to drag men twice my size, avoiding Japanese patrols through timing that seemed coincidental but felt orchestrated, surviving hundreds of bullets that should have hit me. Some people call that luck. I call it providence, the commandment, thou shalt not kill, that I'd clung to since childhood, the commandment that made me hated by my own unit, turned out to be the source of my greatest strength. Because refusing to kill meant I focused completely on saving lives. Every ounce of courage, every bit of determination, every moment of fear overcome went toward healing, not destroying. I couldn't kill, but I could save. And saving turned out to be the most powerful thing I could do. Epilogue: the soldier who died once. I died March 23, 2006, age 87, complications from pneumonia. Died at my home in Alabama, surrounded by family, at peace. I'd lived 61 years after Okinawa, 61 years watching the men I'd saved live. Their lives, raise their families, contribute to America. Knowing that because I'd refused to carry a weapon, 75 soldiers carried on living. At my funeral, 12 of the men I'd saved from Maeda Escarpment attended. They were in their 80s, but they came. Some in wheelchairs, some with oxygen tanks, all of them alive, because one soldier had refused to let them die. Captain Glover, now General Glover, retired, gave the eulogy. Desmond Doss died 37 times. Every time he crawled through machine gun fire to reach a wounded man. Every time he dragged a soldier through a killing zone. Every time he lowered someone down that cliff while Japanese bullets searched for him. He died 37 times to save 75 lives. But he only actually died once, today, at 87 years old, surrounded by love, at peace with God. That's not tragedy, that's victory. Private Doss taught us that there are many ways to fight, many ways to serve, many ways to be brave. He chose the hardest way, to stand unarmed in the midst of war and declare that human life is sacred, to risk death repeatedly to preserve life, to trust God more than weapons. We called him coward, we were fools. He was the bravest man any of us ever met, and because of his courage, 75 men went home to their families. 75 men lived full lives. 75 men had children and grandchildren who exist because Desmond Doss refused to kill but was willing to die for others. That's not cowardice. That's the highest form of courage. That's faith made manifest. That's what it means to be a soldier in the truest sense, to sacrifice yourself for your brothers. Private Doss didn't die 37 times. He lived 37 times, lived in every wounded man he saved, lived in every family that got their soldier back, lived in every child and grandchild of the 75 men who came home from Okinawa because one conscientious objector refused to give up. Desmond, we're all here because you were there. Thank you for everything, for teaching us, for saving us, for showing us that God's commandments aren't restrictions. They're the path to the most powerful form of love, the willingness to die so others might live. Rest in peace, soldier. You earned it. 75 times over. The final county saved 75 men from Maeda Escarpment in 17 hours. The army investigated my claim, thought I might be exaggerating. The witnesses said I'd saved over 100. We compromised on 75 for the official record. But the number doesn't matter. Could have been 50, could have been 100. Each one was a human life. Each one was someone's son, brother, father, husband. Each one deserved to live. I didn't save them through superior combat skills, didn't save them through weapons or tactics or military genius. I saved them by refusing to kill, by believing human life was sacred, by trusting God when everyone else told me I was a fool, by being willing to die 37 times so 75 men could live once. That was my war. That was my service. That was my faith. Thus he do. Soldier who wouldn't fight became the soldier who saved the most lives. The coward became the hero. The conscientious objector became the most decorated medic in American history, because sometimes the strongest warriors are the ones who refuse to carry weapons. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save lives instead of taking them. And sometimes dying 37 times is the only way to truly live.